Hi and welcome! Today I'd like to share a very simple sketching routine I use before painting my botanical sketches. And in this video we will be sketching this simple yet beautiful dog rose. It's a calm and gentle process that helps me keep my drawings light, clean and easier to work with later. Before we begin, I like to prepare everything and create a clean, calm setup for my workspace. For paper, I'm using a watercolor sketchbook with slightly textured surface, because I'll be painting this dog rose later. But you can use any paper you like, of course. For sketching, I work with pencils in different hardness. I use a 2H for light guiding lines and a softer pencil like 2B for refining and small details. I also like to use a mechanical pencil when I want very fine, precise lines. Alongside that, I use a regular eraser, a kneaded eraser, and a soft brush to keep the paper clean and gently remove any dust or crumbs. You will find a full list of the materials in the description below. And if you are curious about the exact supplies I use, you are very welcome to visit my art room, where I've created a full materials list there, and I've added the link below as well. Okay, let's begin with the step 1, finding the simple shape. I always begin by looking for the overall shape of the flower before any details. And here we are working with the dog rose, which has a very light and open structure. Instead of focusing on each petal right away, I begin by placing a loose shape for the whole flower. At this stage, I am simply placing the composition on the page. I'm looking at the overall size of the flower, its proportions and the general angle. I keep my lines very light by using my 2H drawing pencil. It helps me keep everything soft and easy to adjust. This first step is really just the planning layer. We are not drawing details yet, we are looking at the big picture first, before moving into smaller parts. And once the placement feels right, we can move on. The step 2 is about mapping the structure. I often think of this as the skeleton of the sketch. It doesn't need to look beautiful yet. It just needs to feel clear. This is where I begin placing the main elements of the flower with very simple shapes and guiding lines. I start with the center of the flower, drawing a small circle, and from there I add light guiding lines for the petals. Then I place the small leaves with simple oval shapes, adjusting the size depending on the angle. Finally, I return to the flower and place 5 soft ovals for the petals. At this stage, I'm not shaping yet, I'm simply building the structure. Now we continue with step 3, shaping the forms. Once the structure is in place, I begin to gently shape the flower, still keeping a very light touch. Here I move from those simple placeholder shapes into forms that start to look like real petals and leaves. I refine the edges, adjust how the petals overlap, and soften the curves of the leaves. The flower slowly begins to appear, but I'm still keeping everything quite simple and clean. I'm not adding small details yet, just building a clear and believable overall form. Now we can go a little deeper into the sketch and move on to the step 4, refining the edges. Before I begin this step, I like to make the sketch a bit cleaner and remove the guiding lines, because they can start to confuse the overall feeling of the flower. I'm using a simple good quality eraser that doesn't damage the paper. At this stage I switch to a softer pencil like 2B, and I keep a clean sheet of paper under my hand to protect the surface and avoid smudging. I refine the edges, shaping the petals more clearly, and adjust a few overlaps so the flower feels more natural. This is also the stage where I start thinking about how I want the flower to feel, whether I want the shapes to be more rounded or a little more angled. Personally, I often use more organic flowing lines because I like the flower to feel natural and alive. That's also why I begin adding gentle folds and soft curves, so the sketch starts to breathe a little more. Now we come to step 5, refining the details a little more. Here I begin adding some of the smaller features that help bring the flower to life. I switch to my mechanical pencil because it has a sharper point and I like using it for details in a more crisp but still controlled way. I add the thorns, the veins in the leaves and petals, and the center of the flower. In the middle of the flower, I place the reproductive structure using small rounded shapes for the anthers and connect them with the fine lines toward the center. And as I keep shaping these small details, the flower starts to feel more alive. It adds rhythm, movement, and more of the flower's character. Now we come to the final step, preparing the sketch for watercolor. When I'm happy with the drawing, I like to soften it a little bit before I begin painting. As you can see, the lines of the flower are too heavy. This is such an important step, especially for beginners, because if the pencil lines are too strong, they can show through the watercolor and take away some of the softness. So here I use my kneaded eraser and gently lift the graphite. I usually tap lightly or softly roll it over the surface instead of rubbing. In some areas, like the tip of the petals, I may lift the lines even more, so the flower feels lighter and a little more expressive. The goal is still to see the sketch, but only as a soft guide, not as a strong drawing underneath. And of course, if you are working with the drawing on its own, you don't need this step. You can simply move into shading using softer pencils like 4B or 8B. And now the sketch is light and ready for watercolor. Thank you so much for sketching with me today. I'm also working on a full video covering the whole process in more depth, and it will be coming soon in my art room. You can find the link in the description below, and if you'd like to keep updated, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. Take your time with your sketch, and I'll see you in the next one.